All right. So this should be a good episode, I think. Um, just took a shower. You know, I got some fresh ideas. I got some fresh things to say. I got a lot of things to say about this novel. A lot of things. And it's only part one, and it's a fat book. Just huge. It's like over 1,000 pages. So finished part one of the book, and overall, you know, I'm liking it. I'm enjoying it a lot. It's probably one of the few books that has been able to keep my attention the entire time. For the most part, and there doesn't really seem like any slow parts, at least when I'm reading it. Maybe for other people it's mundane and so on, but for a reader like myself, uh, I'm typically not into fiction, and I'm typically not into. I mainly read a lot of just educational stuff, so half the time I think reading fiction is feels like a waste of time to me, and I'm gonna emphasize the feeling because intellectually that's wrong. It's not a waste of time. I think there's a lot of wisdom in novels and stuff that you can kind of pull and philosophical things. Anyways, that's not the point. My point is really enjoying this novel. Uh, so for those of you that haven't read it, if you don't care that I spoil some things, then you know, free, free to stay, free to stay. You know, stay if you want to. Um, okay, so the novel begins with two main characters, and I'm gonna pronounce her name wrong because it's supposed to sound like edamame, similar, but it's aomame or something like that. I don't know. In my head, I just been reading it as umami, so I'm gonna pronounce it as umami, and I'm telling you guys that I'm gonna pronounce it wrong up front. So, but for the way I've been reading it, I've read it as umami the entire time. And I feel like switching the name up and trying to pronounce it correctly right now is really going to cause a brain freeze in all my thinking. So just bear with me. I'm going to pronounce wrong. And, I guess if you don't want to, then, you don't have to watch this either. But okay, so there's umami and then tango. I really like tango. I really identify with the male character. But let's go back and talk about Umami a little bit. She is basically an assassin. She works for this what they call the Dow Wager, and she kills men that have basically abused other women or assaulted other women in any type of fashion, either mentally or physically. Um, but of course, the Dow Wager only uses the assassination type of method as a last resort. Um, so I thought that was interesting. Like there is some kind of like ethical thing where it's like if you can't get any justice at all and you've done all that you can, then there's this aspect in the novel where it's like the Dow Wager uses her influence to basically hire Umami and where she assassinates men, men that have abused other women. Um, Now, one of the things that I don't understand with Murakami, well, I don't understand the controversy behind Murakami. Some of those controversies are that he is misogynist or he's sexist or something like that. But uh, this novel has I mean, in my opinion, has a very strong feminist tone. Um, there's a Umami is a strong female character, though a lot of the premise of who she's killing are men that have abused women and have been sexist and so on. So I do understand that this is one of Murakami's later novels. So maybe uh, you know maybe this novel is a result of Murakami being pressured into kind of showing that he's not, or showing face for just the public. I don't know. But anyways, all I can say is that in this novel specifically, I don't really find those controversies or arguments to have much weight in this novel, especially when you look at Umami and kind of like her whole premise of existing in the novel. Tango is another character that you were going to follow. Uh, I really like him because he's basically a writer. He's a seems like an introverted guy, stocky, probably big dude. And he teaches math at a cram school, and he aspires to be a novelist. So um, that's really that's really Tango. Except Tango, he wants to. I don't know. He kind of. It seems like he's missing something, and what I like about what Murakami does is that he introduces Tango to Fuka Eri, and Fuka Eri is a strange girl, and there's some history behind all of that the novel begins to reveal, and the novel goes back and forth between Umame and Tango, and what's really crazy is that in going back and forth between Tango and Umame, you really get to experience how these events start connecting in their lives and how uh, they're unknowingly kind of connected. So again, this kind of back and forth, um, and then what you end up finding out later on is that uh, they really they know each other. They know each other like when they were kids. They just haven't ran into each other again. So that's basically not not the summary of the novel, but it's a good portion of it. It's very broad in the context. But anyways, if you want me to give you a more like premise of like the whole novel, Fuka Eri is a girl. She puts in a submission for a novel. They end up finding out it wasn't Fuka Eri. It was her friend that put in the submission. Anyways, the book was titled Air Chrysalis, and uh, Komatsu, Tango's friend, saw real potential in this piece of work, so he told Tango to rewrite the work because he knew Tango could do it. Tango was ambivalent about it. He was reluctant at first, but once Tango gave in and did it and got permission from Fuka Eri's guardian, because Fuka Eri didn't have no issues with it whatsoever. Um, you know, the novel ended up becoming a hit, but as you start slowly realizing, for Fuka Eri, this novel isn't something that's fiction. It's actually something that's true and it's real. So there's all these fantastical elements kind of just sprinkled in, and I think sprinkled in is probably perhaps the appropriate term, because a lot of the times it seems strangely ordinary. Most of the first part of the novel is strangely ordinary, but then you run into like these little sprinkles of fantastical elements, like little people and two moons in the sky, um, which came into. So it's really nice. It's like not too fantastical for me, but then it's just enjoyable. Now, so that's basically that's basically part one of the novel in terms of plot. Um, there's a couple other things that it kind of leaves off with, but I'll leave that for people that want to read it. But now, kind of now the lessons that I enjoyed in this novel is Umame is a very logical person, and to a degree, Tango is too. He enjoys math. He says math kind of gives him a sense of comfort because it's all of these things are explainable for the most part. And for Umami, history kind of functions the same way. However, Umami ends up running into some memory problems, and she finds out that she misses some historical events. But anyways, the important part about this is that both Tango and Umami, at different points of interactions, not with each other, but with just the events going on in their life throughout this novel, uh, there's this theme about the world being unexplainable. Uh, I would say Tango kind of accepts it more easily than Umami does, but Umami, she she kind of constructs another parallel world to explain the elements that she can't explain, just to give her some kind of ease, right? She titles the parallel world exactly what the title of the book is, 1Q84, just to kind of give her a point of separation for herself, because clearly for her, the world, something has changed, and she feels like she's not in the same world anymore. So in order to logically deal with this, she says, her hypothesis is that, well, I must be in another world. There must be some kind of parallel universe somehow. Something happened, some transition happened where I'm not in the same ordinary world that I was. And so, in order for me to make sense of it, I'm just going to label it 1Q84. And so now I'm in 1Q84 and nothing makes sense to me. And so this is how she kind of accepts the unexplainable. Uh, Tango, there's a lot of unexplainable things, especially with Fukaeri, but especially when he interacts with Fukaeri, because she's a strange girl and he starts kind of figuring out some of the history behind that. But him, for the most part, he has no problems with it. He kind of just accepts, for the most part, unexplainable things. Now, I think I titled this book Sex, Love, and the Unexplainable. So there's the unexplainable part. Now, there's, I guess, a decent amount of sex in this first part. I don't know. I don't know how I can quantify exactly what's too much and what's not enough. I mean, I don't know. It's not like every page is sex, so I guess that would be overabundant of it. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about sex with concerning Umami and Tango is that Murakami really capitalizes on this part about uh, he really capitalizes this part about the weakness of the body and its cravings, its desires. And interestingly enough, Tango and Umami both accept this. Umami accepts it in the sense that she doesn't allow her emotions or affections to kind of get involved with the people that she sleeps with. She even comments on this when she talks to her cop that's a friend, Ayumi. She just says, "Look, I just sleep with these men because, like, you know, I get these urges and my body just needs to have sex, basically, right?" And and she does so. She just needs the release, and she accepts the release. Uh, and so does Tango. Tango also accepts the release. He's actually kind of, morally speaking, I can't speak, but so Tango is involved with a married woman, but strangely enough, they both have these kind of boundaries where Tango doesn't really care about her family aspect or anything, and she doesn't really want to involve her family or anything in that aspect. So there's boundaries between them, which is uh, surprising, and it seems like it works out for them because really Tango understands the same thing that Umami does. He just acknowledges that he has urges and that's it. And other than that, once he engages in his urges and after he's having sex and so on, Tango basically admits that he's a pretty happy man. He gets to write on his free time. He likes doing his things. He's a very solitary individual. So he also accepts this aspect of the body, which I really enjoyed actually. This element in Murakami's novel, where both the characters accept this kind of like the function of the our bodily functions are kind of like our hormones. Hormones. I can't even say the word. My goodness. um, but yeah, like they accept that portion. So I thought that was really good. Um, Now the love aspect, I thought I should comment on this because for this is mainly geared towards Umami, where she's able to accept her kind of like bodily cravings because she's already in love with someone and she's been in love with someone ever since she was 10 years old. She talks about a boy that she met when she was 10 and she held his hand. Hint, hint. And yeah, and so for her, love is kind of like by chance. And Ayumi is kind of her best friend. Ayumi is kind of really struck by this. Like, I mean, it's admirable that Umami is in love with someone and she's been in love with someone for such a long time. That aspect is just admirable in itself. But Ayumi doesn't understand why Umami doesn't want to kind of like try to find him. She want and Umami just wants to keep it mysterious and just by chance. Now, I don't know what kind of argument could be made for this or against it, but it almost feels as if, for me at least, my beginning impression of Umami's notion of love was it kind of felt very naive to me. Like she put so much emphasis on love and this idea of like, well, I'm just gonna hope that, one day I run into him. And Ayumi's like a cop. Like she could find uh, the guy and easily. She could. She really could. Now Tango is he also never felt much for love. He does recount an episode when he met a girl that held his hand. Hint, hint. uh, but I think The only thing that really strikes Tango concerning love was when he meets Fukaeri, and he begins to get all these strange feelings. And Fukaeri is very attractive. She's young, and he he doesn't know how to deal with it really. Uh, but I think for what Tango realizes is that it's not just because he's attracted to Fukaeri, but it's almost like there's something that Fukaeri did that struck him. And a lot of it has to do with the novel that she wrote. And it gives Tango a lot of fire and a lot of inspiration, something that he realized that he's been yearning for, he hasn't experienced in a long time. I think that's it. So yeah, there's these aspects of sex, love, the unexplainable, and yet um, at the very beginning of the novel, which I absolutely love, is when the taxi driver says something to Umami, and he says, "Don't let appearances fool you." Now this is going to be so important, I believe, because remember, Umami constructs like a hypothesis of a parallel world as 1Q84 to make sense of things that she doesn't understand. And she ends up running into seeing like two moons and all this strange things. But if we go back to the very beginning, where the taxi driver says, "Don't let appearances fool you. There's always and only one reality." I really enjoyed that. I thought that was very philosophical, and I really enjoyed that specific aspect. And I think if you keep that kind of in your mind, um, this parallel world that Umami has constructed as an hypothesis to make sense is only one reality. There's only one reality. So, but it's funny because Umami accepts this at the initial, but it seems like she still kind of falls back on getting caught up in the appearances. And it really makes her lose her sanity sometimes. Not crazy, but makes her lose her sanity a little bit. Uh, and Tango, I can't say much for Tango, but Tango, I really like Tango, as you can tell. Like every time his section pops up, I get really excited. Um, Even though you could say it's not as like action packed as Umami's, where she's actively killing people. But I really like Tango. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Tango just, I think I mean, he just accepts it. He just accepts. Uh, Even if he doesn't understand, he kind of just like, okay. He may get confused or anything, but Tango, for the most part, he doesn't seem like he's the guy that's gonna crash down if all of a sudden the world doesn't make any sense. Um, it's almost as if he finds it more attractive. And I think that is a part of that's probably an implicit element in there. So that's my interpretation of Tango in that part. And the reason, and my argument for that is with his interactions with Fuka Eri, because she's such a strange girl, and he's just so like entranced. He's so entranced by her and hypnotized by all the things that she does. Like she's just completely bizarre, like completely socially, everything. And you know, Tango will be like this, just such a weird girl, but she's got me completely, uh, just enamored by everything that she does. So Yeah, I think I talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. I guess I'll throw in a side note. Side note is I don't know if there will be a part two of this review. Of course, like a good person, I do plan on finishing the novel, the whole thing, the whole 1,199 pages, something like that. I do plan on finishing it, but who knows? Sometimes I don't. And I don't really beat myself up for it, but so far it's keeping me engaged, and I'll just keep going with it. So just keep writing it out. What I really wanted to say though, besides me not finishing things or half starting things, whatever the case may be, there's probably going to be less videos soon, less content in general. I mean, I don't want to say there's going to be no content, but there might be less content in the coming months, especially a couple weeks or maybe a week from now. Mainly because I'm getting out of the army and there's a lot of stuff I gotta get going. I'm trying to place myself in a new career path. So I'm trying to get all these like certifications so I can get at least an entry level position, and worrying about places that I'm gonna live in, the the rent, processing out of the army. That's a whole big deal too. Just there's a lot of things on my plate that are going to be happening really fast in about 4 months, because that's about the time that I'll be getting out. So there's probably going to not be as much contact with me personally. For those of you that kind of like watching my videos and talking to me and engaging with me, so it's funny that I'm going to use this video to to say this part. I feel like maybe this probably deserves a whole nother video titled it with everything, but yeah, I just figured, you know, I would let you guys know that, my life's going to turn upside down, and it's a little scary, of course, but, I hope it's going to be for the best. I hope. But, I got to take the risk. What can I say? Anyways, I think that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and I will talk to you guys when I can. All right, take care.